Hi there, thanks for dropping in. Well, what are we going to make today? How about one of these? Would you use one? Do you know what it is? If you gently push the top, the contents come down and it makes a little thread catcher. How cute is that? A collapsible thread catcher. I know we made one a couple of weeks ago, but I found this one since and I thought it was even cuter. You do your sewing, your stitching during the day, gather your thread, remove it or leave it in there, push down. Gently turn the top and the bottom, push it in so that's one little container, and there you go. Cutest thing ever, right? And it doesn't take very long. There's only one seam that's machine stitched, the rest is done by hand. What you're going to need is one piece of fabric, 8 by 9.5 inches. I'll tell you why. It has to be this certain size for what we're using today, 8 by 9.5. We need 2 pieces of fabric for the bottom, and I'll give you the size of those in one sec. And 2 pieces of cardboard, small pieces of batting. And the size all depends on what you're using as the main base at the top. Now, the pattern I'm following uses a Pringles can, and darn it, you have to empty it out, so that might be an added bonus. So I measured the size of the Pringles can. You measure around with a tape measure, and it was about 9 inches. So I added a half an inch for the seam, and well, I add a half an inch. Your seam is not quite that, but you want a little bit looser, and the height of it will be about 8 inches tall. So the only part that you sew by the seam, you take the shorter side, one seam down the side. Then, or before you sew it, probably you want to press a 1/4 inch on either end. You don't need to sew them, just press them because we're going to use them for a guideline. 1/4 inch in either end, and you have a little tube. So you're 8 by 9.5, now makes you a little tube. When you're cutting the size of the bottom and the size of your cardboard and batting, I took my ring and made sure that the fabric on the bottom was about 1/4 inch larger around. You cut it out using this as your template, and you add at least a 1/4 inch around so that you have something to work with on both pieces of fabric. And for the cardboard, I measured it on the inside. I measured on the inside because remember, your cardboard is going to fold up in there, so you want it a wee bit smaller than the circumference of the base, so it'll fold in there easily. And your 2 pieces of batting will be the same size as your cardboard, 2 pieces of cardboard. So you have 2 cardboard, 2 batting that are measured from the inside. You have the 2 pieces for the bottom, a little bit bigger than the outside, and you have your 1 piece of 8 by 9.5 with 1/4 inch on either end ironed up. And no more sewing by machine. The rest is done by hand. So you take your template, leave it inside out, slide it over the top, about halfway down, fold your fabric down, and just keep playing with it until you get it exactly halfway so that your seam on the bottom matches the seam on the top. You want it the exact same length inside and outside. That takes a couple of seconds, and there you go. Now, when you have it the same length, kind of keep your finger so that make sure it's pushed to the top. Push to the top of your fold, and sew a stitch along the top to keep this cardboard in place. That's a major. You want to keep the cardboard in place. So with your thread and needle, sew stitches along the edge of that cardboard so that you're keeping it in place where it is. Now you're going to make your bottom already. You take your one of your pieces of fabric and sew a running stitch about 1/4 inch inside your circle, And some people make it double just to make sure it's secure, and when they pull it they don't break it. It's up to you, whatever size you normally do. Do your running stitch. Take one of your pieces of cardboard. Oops, sorry. You take your batting first and put it at the bottom. Put your batting at the bottom of your little circle. Your piece of cardboard goes on the top to make it secure. And now you pull up your running stitch and secure it. Pull this up and secure, and you have like a little biscuit. You do the same with the second one. I used different. I was running out of that pretty material, so this is going to be on your inside anyway. It doesn't matter what fabric you have. You take the same, you put your batting, you put your cardboard, and pull your running stitch. Then, when you have them secured, sew the two together, and you have a little double-sided biscuit. Sew the two together. Now, pull up the inside so that remember this is now secure because you've sewn along the top. But you're pulling up the inside where you've already ironed your 1/4 inch so that it's folded over with a nice neat edge. And because this is the outside now, I'm going to use my pretty fabric on the bottom, and you're going to sew your biscuit along to that inside opening there. Now, this fabric is a little bit bigger than the bottom, so you kind of ease it a little bit, but you want it a little bit larger so that it's not strained. But you can ease it and kind of, if you want to put a pin here and there and judge how much you have to kind of give it a little bit of a gather. Once you have the inside sewn, you just pop it back through. I should have partially made one. It would have been easier. Didn't realize. Anyway, you pop it back through, and when you do, you're going to use your ironed bottom and sew the outside. Sew along the outside, and you have your bottom piece finished on the inside and outside, and they pop back and forth. Just don't do it with a lot of force. Now, you have your sewn seam, which you did on a machine. You can do it by hand too if you don't want to bother taking the machine out. Your cardboard is secure in here because you'll run a stitch along the bottom. So after you've used it and you want to set it away, you want to toss it in your sewing basket or whatever, give it a little, if you just take your hands and twist it opposite, and it automatically seems to want to go that way, and gently set the bottom inside that ring, and you have your little collapsible pincushion. You have your collapsible thread catcher. That wouldn't be very good pincushion. There'd be needles everywhere and pins everywhere. Now, the whole thing is really based on the cardboard that you cut out. I used the Pringles can because that was the pattern I followed. However, if you can find another container that's a heavy cardboard, or put a cardboard with a heavy piece of plastic as a liner, if you can tape that in, a heavy plastic liner, it keeps it very, very secure. For example, a water bottle or milk bottle, if you cut a piece out and tape it in. This is used as your template for your sizes because this is what your bottom has to be a little bit smaller, so it will go in, and it has to be a little bit smaller when you cut out your pieces. So this is your main template for the whole pattern. So remember, it's just 8 by 9.5, and you sew down the short side, press the two sides up 1/4 inch each, 2 circles, which I went to the inside of this cardboard and drew 2 circles of cardboard, 2 circles of batting, and for your bottoms, I made them a little bigger than the circle. You go on the outside because you're gonna pull it with your little string, and you end up with one of these. It's a cute gift if you probably do have sewing friends or someone that you want something different. They might not know, have seen one of these before. It's a cute little thing to pass along. It does not take long to make, so you're probably going to make a few. And from the one can of Pringles, I'm not advertising, it just happens to be what it is. From the one can, you probably get, I don't know, half a dozen of these. We used to call them box cutter, but now they call them a craft knife, so be really, really careful. Do not leave it sitting out if there's anyone else in your house, or even if you forget, pick it up later. They slide back in, and be very careful. Now I measured down, this one is 3/4 of an inch. I wanted it a little bit sturdier in case I accidentally forgot and pushed it harder than I should have. It would give it more sturdiness. They said 1/2 inch, it's up to you. If you want to cut a 1/2 and a 3/4, it's up to you. See which one you would prefer to use. This happens to be 3/4. Anyway, that's it for today. Glad you dropped by. Thank you for coming in, and see you soon. Have fun. These are cute. They don't take much fabric, and you get to eat some chips while you're making them. Before you make them, don't have your chip fingers all over the fabric. Bye for now.